I'm Justin BINFORD, the QA director.
I'm Senior Technical Tester at Foundry 42 UK.
I'm the lead live QA tester here at Wilmslow, Foundry 42.
I'm a specialist quality assurance tester.
I'm a QA specialist, and my specialty is the planet side.
I'm the QA control specialist at Foundry 42.
I'm a senior tester.
I am a QA tester in the LA studio.
I'm a QA character art specialist.
I'm a QA lead originally from the UK office, now residing here in sunny Frankfurt.
QA specialist.
I am the QA ship specialist.
I'm the QA manager here in Los Angeles.
QA technical lead here at the Frankfurt office.
QA specialist for FPS Star Marine, Destroyer of Worlds.
Oftentimes people will say, oh, QA, that's just sitting there playing video games, isn't it? And it's like, to an extent, but our game is not playing the game, our game is breaking the game.
My day is awesome. I come into work and play Star Marine all day long. I can't complain at all. Basically, I come into work, start up Star Marine, and try to break it all day long. It's fun.
Weapons free. Let's do this.
I test the technology that's going to go into our build to make sure it doesn't break anything existing within the game.
My favorite part of the job is basically get to break stuff, and people get mad at me for it, but it's pretty funny because then they think, I didn't think about breaking it that way. And you're like, well, I broke it that way.
In QA, we definitely work to try and break any kind of feature we can so we can tell the developers exactly like how it's broken and maybe what could be done to improve it.
Our goal is to break it, yeah.
Okay, this is a shiny new ship, this has just come in. How do we break it? How do we make it not work? How do we show the devs where kind of there may be some spit and polish needed here and there? I mean, we're working on a new ship at the minute. I can't say which, but needless to say, it started off quite shonky is a word we use within QA. But within a week, we see it go from shonky to slightly less shonky to shiny to beautifully shiny, ready to go. Let's go kill some fools.
That is not the same as playing the game all day, no.
After I break other people's games, I write it up basically step by step, exactly how to do it, what's happening. Sometimes I know kind of the underlying why it's happening, but it's not necessarily goes into the bug as far as my opinion of why it's happening, just how to make it happen.
QA is like where the rubber meets the road in terms of development. So you have all your disciplines coming together, and then QA is right there making sure that everything's working properly, and so then making sure that the magic happens, so to speak.
When we find issues, we have to reproduce the issues, so we will find the cause for the issue.
We have to touch pretty much every discipline, whether it's working in the editor, whether it's working in Squadron 42, Star Marine, Arena Commander, the Persistent Universe. We need to be an authority on pretty much anything because our local developers and designers cover most of those bases.
What we do is pretty important because it will prevent something catastrophic happening to the build, which not only affects the testing, but affects the developers that could be working it as well.
My job's really exciting because I get to do something different every day. I get to use the editor and Maya and Photoshop, as well as in-game stuff. I get to do a lot of Squadron 42 and really learn a lot about the characters and the story.
Good to have you back in the fight.
Take on specific dev requests to test their new changes or features that come in, as well as fixes.
Usually when we come in every day, there'll be a new build for us. And then what we'll have to do is do something called a sanity check on them. And this will be just so that we can quickly run through each of the editor sections and quickly say, this works, this tool is okay, and we can send out a list of what's broken, what's not to the designers.
With me, it's the controls, which is quite a broad area of speciality, as the control scheme is really, really large. There's probably about 120 plus different mappings of keys across all the different areas. It's quite an arduous undertaking, but it's fun and it's really interesting.
I take point on the spectator camera, patch notes, some technical writing, and some training.
I get to fly spaceships, and I get to blow up spaceships. And whenever anybody needs somebody to fly a ship, they come to me, and that kind of makes me feel good.
Two particular tools that we do test would be the loadout editor or the planet editor. Those are great fun to test and work in. The planet editor It's been fantastic seeing all the work that's gone into procedural planets and being able to go into the editor, launch that tool, and just from nothing create our own QA planet, put in mountains, valleys, deserts, or anything. It's a lot of fun whilst you're testing, because who doesn't want to see Gary Oldman carrying a mop and a railgun all at the same time?
When a release is approaching, we start out with a build that's fairly unstable and broken. And so we will continue to test it iteratively and report to production and stakeholders the most major issues, so we can start to stabilize the build and get it functioning on a basic level.
Basically, when we get a new build, we do a flow checklist. Whoever is around that's working on specific things will do their section.
We pull down shelves for fixes. We have to build our own code half the time. Yeah, we have a lot of things that fall outside of the realm of normal QA duties. So you grab their change list, and then you compile a new build with just that code. And that way you can catch anything that's a major issue before it gets submitted into a major branch, which will then possibly impact other people's ability to do their work.
And then afterwards, usually we'll have a playtest.
Welcome to the squad, Marine.
So that will involve most of QA in the UK. Sometimes we'll have to liaise with our US brethren, and we'll take part in large multiplayer tests, and we'll be looking for very specific things that usually goes above the head of the average QA tester, including myself. I believe today's test was on serialized variables. So if anyone out there knows what they are, that'd be grand. The playtest usually lasts for about an hour or two. And then towards the end of the day, that's where I'll go to my specialist area, and I'll look at any new issues with controls. I'll collate feedback, usually from the playtest for controls. Make sure that if there are any new designs in, or if there's any other people that I need to speak to, I'll usually get that done. There are literally hundreds of bugs that are entered every day, and there's always some gems in there. The stuff of nightmares to just general fun all over the place.
The funniest bug I've found in Star Citizen still has to be when the ship spawns for an AI, the AI will fall out of the ship. So basically, ship spawns in, and all of a sudden the AI just goes pew right through the ship, and the ship just starts flying without any AI in it, and it looks like it's an autopiloted ship.
I would probably say most recently that I found would be if you're in Star Marine and you ADS, which is aim down the iron sights, and then you try to pick up another weapon, the camera would quantum travel outside of everything. Basically, you'd be an out-of-body experience, which is really awesome. It's 100% repro, everybody got it, and nobody found it until I did.
There was one where, like, if you died, your body would start swirling like this, and then if you did it just right, it would pan out, and then you got to see like the whole planet on Broken Moon. And that way, like, you could see like everybody's fighting kind of like micro machines, and you see like little specks going, and you'd realize that the planet is made, but it's not meant to be seen from that view. It was really weird, but it was super cool looking. Like, I loved that.
When tasks come through, often they'll be divided into certain disciplines. So is the task relevant to, say, Star Marine, FPS combat? Is it relevant to ships? Is it relevant to the persistent universe? Is it relevant to weapons, shields, the hundreds of thousands of different little things that we've got, obviously, in Star Citizen?
Thankfully, we've got a great DevOps department in Austin, Texas. So with the difference in time zones, they'll be covering most of the hours where we're signed off. And when we come in, they'll be signing off, usually with some sleepy messages and updates of how everything's going, anything we need to follow up on.
We do a handoff with the UK in the morning and the Germany teams.
So we work very closely with the QA department in Frankfurt. They are almost entirely specialized on testing the engine and the editor. And we've got a good flow of communication and knowledge between them and us.
The cool thing about working, at least here with the engine team, is when we find issues, we can actually send them to them on the fly. So we will message them directly and be like, hey, I found this issue. I think it might be related. Do you want to take a look now? And then if they take a look at it, and they can come up with a fix. It's just like a rinse and repeat until we get a set of binaries that's pretty clean, meaning like no crashes, no weird issues that could be related to what their changes would bring into the build.
Here in LA, we work with the devs, so when they have very specific testing requests. We're here to fulfill those requests for them right away, and that way they can get their fixes in so things can keep progressing as fast as possible with good quality.
Nice work.
24-hour, 7 days a week development is challenging for QA, obviously, because we get so many changes come through. Something may change within an hour, within half a day, within a full day, within a week. And they might happen in LA, they might happen here in the UK, might happen in Germany. We just don't know. We have developers all over the place changing all little bits and bobs. However, we're supported by 3 other awesome teams, one in Frankfurt, Germany, one in Austin, Texas, and one in LA. So we, on a day-to-day, we will hand off to each other.
And they did one last night. Well, last night for us, afternoon for them.
So it doesn't have to just be locally siloed, and we can continue the testing through other departments and other studios.
The question I'm often asked is, how important is the issue council? How important is the forum? And I think everyone in QA would agree with me when I say massively important. Like, when we're testing the game, obviously we create numerous test cases, but there's always the 1 or 2 little scenarios that you don't think about. And that's what the backers do for us, because they actually go out and play the game, not to break it, just to enjoy it, but will invariably break some things as they go along. So having those guys there, like, actually willing to report it and show us step by step how to reproduce videos, screenshots, all these kind of things, they point us in the right direction, and oftentimes it can lead to massive issues that we may have overlooked being brought to light, then fixed, then a better version of the game.
There's always something new being added, sometimes last minute, that needs to be tested. If they add new features, it could break 30 other features that it just barely touches. So that needs to be thoroughly tested. That's why we have players and testers kind of working together to get everything worked out.
In my particular role, I get to do so many things, because of course there's the testing, and there's of course the destructive testing, and then there's even more testing. But I also get to, again, help with patch notes and help with training the people who are not familiar with our current processes. So I get to educate a lot of people who, sure, they've been in development a while, but they haven't been in QA for quite some time. And so there's a lot of new ways that we're tackling problems and kind of just bringing everybody onto that same page. I really love that about QA, and ensuring, like, hey, we're getting to the finish line. Let's do it all together. We've got this. Let's make the best product that we possibly can.
It plays out to ramping towards live by getting kind of the major issues found out before it goes to live. I want to make sure that I send out a game that people are having fun playing and don't experience crashes or lags or that kind of major buggy issues.
It's a whole different world when the live environment gets their hands on something, you know, that as many employees as we might be able to have working on something and being able to focus on something beforehand, obviously it does not compare to when it hits live.
I expect things to get pretty hectic with 3.0 coming up, with so many changes coming to procedural planets and the ships, cameras, different key bindings that we're going to be doing. All these different changes that we want to make sure are just perfect for our players are coming up and are going to be where we want them to be, ultimately.
I foresee some incredibly long nights, and nights to days and otherwise.
I had it quite easy back in my old job. It was 10 minutes from where I lived. You know, I could stroll up there. Here, I travel an hour every day to get here. I would rather travel the hour every day to come here than strolling up 10 minutes to the last job. Like, when I first started during one of our first social kind of things, I was talking to Erin Roberts, and I uttered the sentence, "Well, I'm just QA." And he stopped me and said, "I'll never hear that. I will never hear the words just QA." You know, and he just reinforced how important our work is. You know, I come to work every day, you know, okay, maybe not every day with a spring in my step. We all have our off days, but I know that when I go home from that day, that I will have done something meaningful and helped, well, make the best damn space sim ever.
The relationships that are formed in here are so different from previous positions that I've worked in QA. As I say, the most contact I've had with developers previously was just feedback on bugs.
Anybody that comes into QA, if they're so inclined, they can dig into a different subject as much as they want. And as they develop that knowledge, they can become a specialist and then a subject matter expert for the rest of QA. And I think that can be incredibly valuable to the team.
So the skills the QA would probably need would be curiosity to start with. Because, yeah, a lot of it will just be a case of, well, what happens if I do this? What happens if I do this or this? And going against what the logic is put in place.
Even though like you're not, or I'm not actually the one fixing it, or James is not that one actually fixing the issue, it just sort of feels like you were part of the fix in that sense, because you found it, you brought it to someone's attention, it was fixed, and now the next build won't have that issue anymore.
I've heard many stories about QA, being separate from the dev team, and I've never actually had that experience of being separated from the dev team. So for me, this is pretty normal, whereas, other people always tell me, QA here is great, you're so lucky, and I'm like, in that sense, yes, I have been lucky, and it's everywhere I've been, it's been great. I get to, to work directly with devs and give them direct input or feedback, and I get to see that feedback taken. So here it's fantastic. Working with any dev team is fantastic, especially when you're a QA tester.
We just work to make sure that the build is the best it can be before it goes out and everything's working like it should.